Hey, Jonathan.
How are
Nice
you,
to see
Dave?
you. I'm great. Are you ready to talk some rental car apocalypse?
I am. I am. It is the apocalypse. The apocalypse is nigh, as they say.
I am dying to hear. First of all, I'm dying to hear how you came up with that term. And and B. So I guess was that Forbes that was interviewing you?
Yeah, yeah. Forbes was the first one to interview us for the story. Yeah, I rental car apocalypse
And,
was we
and
were trying to come up with a name that would kind of impart the gravity of the situation, but someone else after the fact came up with Carmageddon, and I was a little bit disappointed I didn't come up with that one. So live with what you got though.
they are both great. Well, I understand you, and I've seen that you've been making the rounds on the media. I actually feel pretty happy that you were willing to join me for this,
My
because I
pleasure.
don't have quite the Forbes audience, but I definitely have a bunch of very interested viewers and readers that. And let's start with this. What the heck is going on with rental cars? Can you explain the background, why
Sure.
this is happening, and what's happening?
It is really a crazy, unprecedented situation. So if we rewind a little bit back to March of last year when COVID first hit, the rental car companies saw demand drop 90%. And, they were kind of shell shocked. They just, they didn't really know what to do at first. But very quickly they figured out they needed to sell off large numbers of vehicles. And this translated to anywhere from 30 to 50% of their fleets, depending on the location. So you had hundreds of thousands, almost 1 million used cars that were just dumped into the used car market. They were sold at auction. They were sold directly to consumers. Really, the rental car companies got rid of cars as fast as they could in any way that they could. And, this worked out okay for them. They right-sized for the demand that they had at the time. For car rental companies made out a little bit better. I mean, it was definitely, if you wanted to get somewhere, you're probably better off renting a car and doing the social distancing thing than you were, sitting in a thin metal tube with 100 other people, elbow to elbow over there, middle seat
For
block
sure.
notwithstanding. So, so rental car companies, I think that they found that they had a ready market for folks who wanted to, get away a little bit or visit family or just, do things they need to do, like move kids in and out from college and things like that. And you also had the situation where folks were moving out of cities to the suburbs, and they needed cars. And in many cases, they didn't want to necessarily buy a new car, so they rented for a long term. So it worked well for 2020. But then you fast forward to 2021, and great news, folks are getting vaccinated. You've got 2 different vaccines in the U.S., and we were starting to push them out. And especially the older generation, 65 and older, were getting those vaccines first. And people were just tired of being cooped up at home. They wanted to go somewhere, anywhere. And the first place they could think of to go was places like Florida and Phoenix, typical snowbird destinations and stuff. And we first noticed it President's Day weekend. All of a sudden, heading into that weekend, like by Monday, we were seeing like certain airports in Florida were getting sold out. And then Phoenix was sold out. And then all of a sudden, it was like by the end of the week, 18 out of the 20 airports in Florida were completely sold out. You couldn't find a car in Phoenix to save your life. Las Vegas was sold out. Denver was a problem. It was like, the pandemic had sort of shifted over to car rentals, and, you couldn't find anything anywhere. And, we said, okay, well, this is the first 3-day weekend. People were just kind of stir crazy, wanted to get out there. But then we saw it follow the following week and the week after that. And then the problem expanded to Hawaii, and it got much, much worse. And I know that you've kind of tweeted and been, reporting from the ground in Hawaii. It got really bad there, and it is getting worse over time. So,
Oh boy.
we're in a bad situation. It's not getting better. I think we're kind of at the tip of the iceberg, and I can talk a little bit more about how we got here and why it is so bad at this point. When you're if you want.
Yeah. Well, I think so. I mean, Hawaii. I'm wondering, is Hawaii so bad because it's a prime leisure destination that has been very safe for? I mean, the reason we wound up going to Hawaii was because it felt safe. We were freshly vaccinated, but still being careful, and it seemed like a way to sort of get really far away from New York City, but without, obviously it's not like we could go to Australia any year soon. So do you think that Hawaii, does Hawaii have extra problems because of the fact that it's not on the mainland, and they sold off their cars and it's harder to get cars back?
Yes. Let me first say one thing. People were noticing that there were cars with Hawaii plates on them on the west coast of the U.S. And
Okay.
there was a reason for that, because they loaded them all up on ships, they sent them over, and they sold them off into the used car market. And the thought was, okay, well, when the demand comes back, and everyone was saying in the media that the demand would come back, over time, it would take years to come back. And, I think people underestimated how much people wanted to travel once they got vaccinated. And that demand came back very quickly and much, much faster than the car rental companies thought. But even that wouldn't have been so much of a problem. The car rental companies, okay, demand came back really quick. We were caught flat-footed. We'll just buy more cars. The problem is that there are no cars to be had right now. And for anyone who's kind of been watching the news and you hear about the semiconductor shortage, and it sounds crazy, but there are no cars because Hertz and Avis and Enterprise are competing with Sony and Microsoft for computer chips that go into Xbox and PlayStation. It sounds like a ridiculous story, but that's actually what's happening. Consumer electronics are one of the primary consumers of these computer chips, and it's the same computer chips that go into cars. These are not specialized chips. These are basic, processors, and the car manufacturers need these things to run the critical systems in their automobiles. And they first shut down their manufacturing lines during COVID, and it's not like you just hit the pause button and then the restart button. It takes months to shut something down, and it takes even longer to start them back up. But they got them started back up. But the problem was, once they got them started back up, they had a shortage of critical components, semiconductors being the primary one. But I was also told by someone recently that there's a foam rubber shortage. Like, who the heck knew about that, to basically put the foam into the seats and things like that. But the bottom line is that the auto manufacturers are not able to get these cars off the assembly line. We're actually hearing that Ford has told some of their dealers that don't expect new cars in the showrooms until late August, which is pretty crazy. And you've got used and new cars at historic high prices, and the rental car companies are just scrambling to try to find cars anywhere that they can. In fact, they're actually buying used cars in the market. Typically, the rental car companies would buy a new car, they'd run them for 6 to 8 months, and then they'd sell them off into the used car market. They're actually buyers of used cars right now because they can't get the new cars that they need. And so it's a kind of a combination of demand coming back and just a lack of supply. And you have those two things crashing into each other, and it's causing this apocalypse that we've been talking about.
Interesting. So I feel like, to a very casual observer, it could seem like, we've heard so much about the Hertz bankruptcy and things like that. And I think it'd be very easy to assume that it's just they don't have the money to get the cars fast enough. But it sounds like it's not that at all. They're capitalized. They just can't get cars fast enough.
Right. And that was my first thought, was that, Avis Budget, they were in much better shape than Hertz, but also, they have cash flow issues and stuff like that. But Enterprise is one of the strongest companies out there. They have basically an unlimited, storage of cash there, and credit lines they can tap into. And so if that were the case, we were looking to say, okay, well, maybe Enterprise is the only one who's got vehicles. Let's wait until the Enterprise catches up. They buy a whole bunch more vehicles. But that wasn't the case that we were seeing. Everyone was out of vehicles. If it was a cash flow issue, Enterprise would have been cleaning up in this market. But Enterprise has nothing either, even with their buying power. And the reason is because they didn't want to be sitting on vehicles that were just sitting around doing nothing either. They sold them off as well. I mean, they were responsible, corporate stewards of their shareholders, even though it wasn't a public company. But nobody expected that when the push came to shove, they wouldn't be able to buy those vehicles back, because that's never happened before. I mean, there's nothing about this last year or so that's been normal. And, unprecedented is an overused word, but everything is sort of an unprecedented situation right now.
Yeah, you're not understating that, and it feels like that applies to every market. I mean, just looking at lumber prices, or the housing market in general, or I mean, just try and get an in-ground pool put in this summer. Like, good luck. Like, everything's unprecedented, and you could look into almost any market for it. So I'd like to take 10 seconds now. We kind of started very, very fast because I didn't know where the go live button was. And so now that we've been talking for a few minutes, I want to make sure that I formally introduce Jonathan. So Jonathan Weinberg is the CEO of AutoSlash, and I think a majority of MilesTalkers know about AutoSlash because I recommend AutoSlash all the time. But for those that don't, AutoSlash is a fantastic car rental search tool. that not only will search for you across all of the car rental companies and automatically insert discount codes and try and get you the best price, but they will also track the car rental price. So most of you know that car rentals are not prepaid unless you choose a prepaid option, which you probably never should, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, he says no. I wasn't really sure, but I wouldn't do a prepaid rental. So assuming you haven't done a prepaid rental, AutoSlash will continue to track and see. So if you booked it at $28 a day and closer to your trip, it's $22 a day. It'll automatically reprice it down at no cost to you. So it's pretty fantastic. And I know Jonathan for a few years now, and a really great guy. So happy to have him on here. And I think where I'd like to jump now that everybody knows how qualified you are to talk about this, what is the first step? So if somebody is going to Hawaii or South Florida or apparently Phoenix, or one of these destinations where they're having trouble, what is step one?
Far and away, step one is to plan as far ahead as possible what your travel plans are going to be over the next few months. And that means all the way through the summer. We expect this problem to be with us all the way through the end of August at least. So expect that wherever you're going to go this summer, if you need a rental car, you're going to overpay. And if you don't plan early, there's a very good possibility that you're either going to be priced out of the market or not have a car at all. The great thing about car rentals is that you don't have to pay up front. You basically don't have any skin in the game. You can book a car rental with simply your name and your email address, and that will hold the reservation. I mean, there's the famous Seinfeld skit, you know how to take the reservation, you just don't know how to hold the reservation. I mean, it's obviously funny. And it's
hilarious and so true right now.
It is. And there are people showing up to the car rental counters. It's funny, but it's not a laughing matter for those folks who are showing up and them telling them that they maybe don't have cars. But it's a common misconception that if you prepay for your car rental, that will somehow guarantee it. It does not. They're the people that are standing on.
I'm glad you're mentioning that, because that is a question I've been asked a few times, and I was like, wait for the seminar with Jonathan, because I have no idea.
Right. When you walk into the Las Vegas McCarran Rental Center and you see 100 people standing online, I can guarantee you that 25% of those people have prepaid for their rental, and the other 75% are have not prepaid, and that none of them are going to get cars if there are no cars available. Basically,
how does status factor in if you have status with the car rental company?
So status is not going to pull a car out of thin air, but there are times where status is going to help you. And number one is, obviously if the line of the rental car center is 50 people deep, you're going to walk right past that line. You're going to walk right into the garage. Now, hopefully the garage still has some cars in it, but it's going to help if there's anything in the aisle over there, Emerald Isle, or Hertz Ultimate Choice, or even Avis, they'll pre-assign you a car. There's a much better chance that you're going to get a car if you have status. But it's not going to make cars materialize, and it really depends on how well the car rental companies manage their fleet utilization. If they're overbooking by 30%, and everyone shows up that they overbook with, everyone's going to be screwed at that point. But it definitely can help when they're sort of on the borderline between just having enough cars to meet the demand that they have.
And okay. And so one thought. So when we were in Hawaii, I mean, we rented 1 week from Hertz. And then another 5 days from National. Didn't have a problem in either location. However, I did know that not only were they sold out when, at close in, because I had looked to actually modify a reservation. It was like, you can't, it's sold out. But even when we were there, they still had several cars. It wasn't a vacant, an empty lot, but we did notice that as the cars were going away, they weren't, the lot was not filling back up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, but also, and obviously we were noticing the prices kept going up as we got closer until they were sold out. I mean, we were seeing cars were going for $200, $300, $400 a day. I was fortunate enough to have some Hertz points, and that's good. One tip I'll give is that if you are able to book early while they still have inventory, those Hertz points still work. And we got it was about $1,400 worth for 3,750 Hertz points, which I thought was pretty fantastic value. But the other question, so, we didn't have any problems, but we couldn't tell if they were, if they had cars that they were specifically holding for us. And I guess the question that I really have that I had myself is, okay, let's say we landed, we got to the car rental counter, and they go, we're so sorry, but we don't have any cars. I mean, I had two thoughts. One is, should I have a second car booked maybe, now not at the exact same time, because I was thinking like, does that look bad if I cancel after the time of pickup? And you can answer that for us because maybe it doesn't. But I was thinking maybe an hour later, have a car, if I added Hertz, book another one at National. So that was my first thought. And then two-part question. What if they go, we have no cars, and I go, that's fine, we'll wait. Like, is that an acceptable technique? So,
oh, absolutely, yeah. And in many cases, they'll say, you'll have to wait. There are 30 people ahead of you. And, sometimes they'll say, hey, go to your hotel and leave us your cell number and we'll call you. It's better if you're standing there pestering them, like, give me my car, rather than relying on them to actually call you. But yes, I mean, typically if they don't have enough cars, I mean, it really depends on how massively they're oversold and how badly they manage the inventory and how many people show up. Every situation is different, I would say. But going back to your first question, this is something I've taken heat for in the past, and I really try to temper my advice in terms of like booking multiple reservations, because it does cause more problems than it solves. Because if I get on TV and I tell everyone to book a backup reservation, then it just, it's a cascading problem, and then it causes problems across the world here. It's great that people think I have that much influence that I'm going to cause the entire car rental industry to crash myself by recommending people have a backup reservation. But, it can, in some cases, make the difference. It's something I would not hope that everyone would be booking multiple reservations, because it will create problems. But if it's one of those things where you absolutely have to have a car because, you're going somewhere where, a family obligation or whatever, it's not the worst thing in the world to have a backup reservation somewhere. That's,
I think that toes the line pretty well on saying things without saying things. But I kind of interpret that as like, don't do it as a general rule because you're hogging all the cars. But if you have a situation where this is that trip where if you can't get in a car, you're not going to be able to get an Uber to where you're going, that kind of thing.
Right.
And it's for a graduation, a wedding, whatever, you might want to
If you're going to miss your own wedding without a rental car, you probably should
book two.
That's my advice. Yes.
Book two. Okay, so that's fair. And so what I'm gonna do here is we do have some questions coming in, and I've got a handful more questions for you, but I feel like maybe I'll just sprinkle in what some people are asking. Sure. So the first one, and I have a feeling you're probably not gonna be able to answer this because I don't see how you could, but we have someone asking. They have a car rental booked from Hertz starting in late June for a month from Fairless Hills, Pennsylvania. They did book it through AutoSlash, and they're just wondering: is there going to be an issue at the time of pickup due to the shortage of cars?
Generally, no. The vast majority of people are getting cars. They're not having any problem at all. There are some stories, and they tend to be amplified, where this particular location had 50 customers who were waiting on cars, that sort of thing. But most of those locations are doing a fairly good job. We've heard of locations calling people ahead of time to make sure that they're planning on showing up for their reservation, so they can kind of confirm them. It's not the worst thing in the world to call the location, especially if it's an off-airport. Like, don't bother calling an airport location. That's useless. I mean, the airport's like, yeah, we have cars. Like, go away. Don't bother us. But if it's an off-airport location like Fairless Hills, I would recommend calling them the day before, like literally the afternoon before. Like, don't call 3 days before, because 3 days before they're just going to like blow you off and be like, who are you? Like, it's not. But if you call like literally the afternoon before and you're picking up 9 o'clock the next day, say, hey, look, it's really important that I have this car. I want to make sure that you guys have enough cars in the lot. Is there anything I can do to maximize my chance? Should I show up earlier? That sort of thing. I mean, just chat them up a little bit and see what the situation is. But by and large, people who have reservations are getting cars. We haven't had a lot of reports, honestly, which, knock wood, I'm happy about. But yeah, it's most people are getting what they were promised.
And so it sounds, if I'm interpreting this right, if you're going to Hawaii, if you're going to South Florida, if you're going to Arizona, that's where you maybe are more concerned that there's a slight chance of this happening. But it sounds like somewhere like Fairless Hills, it's not the hot spot of the country right now in terms of travel. And if you have a reservation, they should keep the reservation.
Yes, and one thing you can do if you just want to reassure yourself, it's not really going to do anything to help you. But if you want to reassure yourself, if you try to, go book the day before your pickup and see if they still have cars available, if they're still showing inventory, then you're not going to have any problem at all. Because if the inventory has been gone for 2 weeks, then, okay, well, maybe things are a little bit tighter and you might want to give them a call. So that's my advice.
Right. That makes sense. That's great advice. So the next question here from Ben, I think actually dovetails perfectly into my next line of questioning, which is around discounts. So given the prices now, especially when you are seeing hundreds of dollars a day for car rentals, I know I've never seen anything like it. What are the best techniques aside from AutoSlash? What are the best ways to go about getting discounts? And then the part two, because apparently I'm always going to have a part two in my questions now. The part two is Ben specifically would like to know, assuming you've picked up car rental status from perhaps your Amex Platinum. I know I've written several times about how to get Executive Elite for free. You can match that into Hertz President Circle. Maybe you have a second tier status that you just got from the Platinum card. So if you have something like that, how can you combine that with Costco, which I do understand can have pretty good car rental rates? I've never used it myself. So Costco and general discounts.
Okay, so it's sort of apples and oranges, status versus discounts. So it's great if you've got a high-end card and you can get status at one of the car rental companies, and you can use that to parlay a match to the others. I mean, there's really no reason, if people are not reading MilesTalk and listening to what folks like you are saying, that they shouldn't be able to get top tier status at pretty much all the rental car companies. At least top tier status at National and get Hertz to match that. I mean, they're pretty much a dime a dozen. It's not difficult to do. That said, their discounts are completely different. I mean, the Amex Platinum CDP is a great CDP. It gives a great discount in many cases. It also gives a 4-hour grace period. So if you're booking for a week, you could book for a week plus 4 hours and still only pay the weekly rate. Not, 4 hours is basically an entire other day in car rental parlance. Essentially, car rentals are based on a 24-hour day. Not to get too far in the weeds, but the first hour you're paying like a third of the day. The second hour you're paying 2/3 of a day. And by the third hour, you're paying for the full day. So if you've got the Amex Platinum card and you use the CDP with that, you're basically getting a free day out of it with that 4-hour grace period in most cases.
That's a great tip, and one that I've used and think's fantastic. And also, I think that's a really great way that you just explained the way the pricing works, kind of like a Manhattan parking garage, where it's like $30 for the first half hour, $40 if you're there 2 hours, and $60 for 24 hours.
Don't even bother with that. Once you hit 31 minutes, it's like $9.99 for the first hour, and then $7,500 for the 31st minute. So forget it. Yeah. And just to clarify, Ben's asking what is CDP. I don't know what it stands for, but I know it's the corporate discount code program. I think
corporate discount program.
Corporate discount program.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So Hertz has CDP, Avis has AWD, Avis Worldwide Discount, Budget has BCD. They all have their own little parlance. But basically, it's, you've got just to back up for a second for those uninitiated. You've got discount codes and you've got coupon codes, and there are some companies that allow you to apply both discount codes and coupon codes. Hertz, National, Avis, Budget. There are some companies, Alamo as well. There are some companies that only allow you to apply coupon codes, like I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head, but I can't. And then there are other ones where you could only apply a discount code or a coupon code, like Enterprise is one of those. There's only discount code in Enterprise. So it really depends on the company. You ideally want to combine a discount code with a coupon code if you can, but it doesn't always work. I mean, sometimes the best deal may be with just a discount code and there's no coupon code that will work. AutoSlash, you don't have to worry about any of this stuff. We basically think of AutoSlash as a brute force attack against the car rental price. Essentially what we do is it's like if you were to guess somebody's password. You would basically just have the computer try thousands of random combinations until the computer guessed the password. That's basically what AutoSlash does with the car rental rate. AutoSlash says, okay, we know that this person is going to Orlando from this date to this date. We know that it's a weekend rental. Here's all the discount. Here's all the coupon codes that would apply in this situation. And here's all the discount codes they qualify for. They're a Costco member. They're a AAA member. They're an AARP member, whatever. We're going to apply all these discount codes. We're going to figure out the best discounted price. And then we're going to try sequentially all the coupon codes. This is what computers are great at. They're able to try massive combinations of things. And then we just spit out what's the best rate per company. It's something that you could do on your own, but who wants to bother spending all that time when you can have a free service do it for you? So that's the idea there.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great. And
yeah, just going back before, so status is one element, and then the discount code is another. So there's really no way to combine your American Express Platinum discount with Costco. It's either or. And they work with different companies. So for example, there's the American Express Platinum CDP with Hertz. Avis doesn't. Costco doesn't work with Hertz. Costco works with Avis, Budget, Alamo, Enterprise. So it really depends, and you never know which discount code is going to be the best. Lots of people say, "Oh, this one's always the best," or "Costco's always got the best rate." Well, yeah, Costco honestly is a great discount code, but Costco doesn't work with Hertz at all. They don't work with Dollar. They don't work with Thrifty. They don't even work with National. So if the best deal happens to be with Hertz, if you get a great deal with Avis at Costco for $900, but the rate at Hertz is $400, and Costco is basically blind to that rate, then Costco is useless in that scenario. So that's why AutoSlash is good, because we'll search across all the discounts that you qualify for and all the companies. Most sites don't do that. AAA, for example, AAA only works with Hertz. If the best deal was with Hertz, great. If it's not, then you're kind of screwed in that instance.
Right. And I think to wrap up the end of that question that we had in the chat is that, assuming Costco sells whatever agency or car rental agency that you have status with, you'll be able to use your status. So I feel like, just because we, in Miles and Points, we talk so much about hotels, and if you book third party, they won't honor your benefits. None of that applies with car rentals, right? No matter where I book, if I show up with my Executive Elite at National or my President's Circle at Hertz, I can skip the line. I can pick a car from anything that's available, et cetera, right?
If you book a pay later rate, and the site that you book at allows you to put in your loyalty number, then you will get all your benefits and your status. So you will be able to skip the counter, you'll earn points, you'll be able to select your own car, all that kind of stuff. As long as, and when booking through AutoSlash, most of the time we send you to Priceline. The main reason for that is that Priceline's got the best discounting engine out there. We're able to manipulate it in ways that Priceline doesn't even know about, frankly. There's a place on the checkout page in order to enter your loyalty number. As soon as you book, you'll be able to log into your National Emerald Club account, your Avis Preferred account, your Hertz Gold account, and that reservation will show up there. It'll show up just as if you booked with the car rental company. So booking with AutoSlash or really any third-party site, if you can apply your loyalty number, is exactly the same as booking with the car rental company. So it doesn't make sense not to book where you get the best deal. That's as simple as it is.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we have Patrick is asking a question, not to get too far out of turn here, but this was something we were talking about before, the prepaid versus postpaid. So he says that he prepaid for a car rental at the end of the month in Denver because the prices were a lot more to book the pay later. Right. What do you advise he do? Does he just stick with it?
It depends on the situation. The prepaid rate, typically there's a cancellation fee. It can be $50. It can be $100. It depends on what it is. You could always stick it into AutoSlash and see if we come up with something better. If we come up with something that's $75 lower, well, you could just pay the $50 fee and still pocket the $25 difference. I mean, it's not the end of the world. Yes, in some cases, the rental car companies do offer significant discounts for prepaid. I don't like them because you lose flexibility if your flight times change, if you have to cancel your trip at the last minute, God forbid somebody gets COVID or whatever, you lose that flexibility. And the other thing too is that oftentimes the rate will be a little bit lower, call it 10% lower or 15% lower. But if you just track it with AutoSlash, we'll eventually find a rate that's 20, 30, 40% lower. And then you've kind of left money on the table. But I mean, in some situations, the prepaid rate is not the worst thing in the world. And one place where I would recommend looking at it is when you're, a day or two before your rental. It can be a good deal if you know that you're going and you're like, okay, my flight's not going to change at this point, and I can save 20% by booking the prepaid rate. Hey, go for it. You know,
And then, of course, your flight might get canceled.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, I
these
personally,
days.
yeah, I'm very adverse to booking a prepaid rate, but I'm the same with hotels. And for the same reason, I just, you know, I've been told I have a fear of commitment, but you know,
Yeah.
I always feel like
Yeah.
I always feel like I want the flexibility to change. You know, like my wife thinks I'm absolutely insane because about a week before we were leaving for Hawaii, I actually turned to her and I said, "Should we change the trip and go to the Maldives instead?" And she's like, "What are you talking about? Like we've got flights, we've got hotels, we've got car rentals." I was like, "Yeah, but I could cancel it all and we could go to the Maldives."
Yeah.
So I mean, we didn't, but the point is that like I think that the flexibility is worth something. But what I have noticed a trend with in hotels is they're trying to widen the gap. I mean, it stopped during peak COVID, but I see it coming back now, and they'll make, you know, I don't know if I just look on Marriott more or if they really are the worst with this, but you know, it'll be like $199 for the prepaid rate and $329 postpaid, and I'm like, it makes my head explode because I just, you know what, I wind up not looking at that.
Want to book the pay later rate, but you know, at the same time, the you know, the cost saver in you that
Right.
wants to, yeah.
They make it too painful, but it actually it has a weird effect on me, and I never think that I'm like anyone else. I would never try and say the psychology applies elsewhere, but I wind up just looking for a different hotel. I look for another hotel where I don't feel like I have to make that decision, and then I feel much easier. So to answer one more question about that Amex Platinum, the CDP code, if I recall, when you go into your Hertz account and you add the Amex Platinum, it adds the rate code into your account, right?
It will. It will. I'm not a real big fan of adding those into your Hertz account because sometimes Hertz will kind of force them onto reservations and then it screws things up. I mean, but you just basically can go on. You can either just check the box on AutoSlash or just look up what the CDP code is. I think it's 211762 for Amex Platinum. It's a little scary off the top of my head, but you know, hey, there it is.
Okay, there you go. You got that answer. That was worth tuning in for. And then, so Ben, we definitely answered your question. Now you're good. If Costco gives you where you have status, you're all set. Question about so this is actually a question for me. I feel like it's about using the Chase Sapphire Reserve for the CDW coverage. And so, unless Jonathan, he's welcome to disagree with me because he is the expert on it, but I put every car rental on my reserve. I would put it on a preferred equally. Chase Sapphire Preferred is
yep.
I believe, exactly the same.
That's what I use.
But and I do always use it. I did have one time the door. I got a Jaguar at Hertz. I mean, it was a free upgrade, but it was a nice car, and someone keyed it, and it was, I don't know, $700 worth of damage. And Chase just worked directly with Hertz and paid them. I didn't owe anything. It was no problem. I didn't have to really spend very much time with it. So I think it's great. But one thing that I've learned now with a little bit of research is funny because I was texting with Jonathan about this, or actually with Chris about this a few weeks ago when I was booking the Hawaii car. And I have now learned, so the American Express sells a premium car rental protection coverage. Right. And I have now found, and I have found two uses for this, and I'd be curious if you find a third. But one I've noticed is if you were going to rent a pickup truck for whatever reason, the Chase insurance will not cover that, but the Amex Premium Protection will cover that. Yeah. And the other is if you pay entirely with the car rental company's points. So I'm not talking about booking through your credit card's portal or something, but like in my instance, where I booked in Hawaii for a week using just Hertz points, right? And the only thing left was some taxes and fees. That actually will not qualify on the Chase Sapphire coverage because you did not pay for the rental. They've told me this. I mean, I don't know if you could get lucky. They've told me it won't qualify. And Amex,
the credit card company told you that?
Chase told me that it wouldn't qualify if I used Hertz points. If I use Chase points, it'll cover it. But if I use Hertz points, they say it won't cover it. But the Amex Premium Protection will. Yeah,
there's some ambiguity on whether or not that would be covered. I mean, there's ways of gaming that system a little bit. If something happens and you've rented for 5 days on points, on Hertz points or whatever, just keep it for a 6th day, even if the car is like crumpled at that point, just like return it on the 6th day, and then they charge you for a day, and then one day there's one chargeable day to the card, and you can say, well, I paid for the rental on my card, so you guys are on the hook to pay for it. I mean, if the car gets totaled, you don't want to really chance that.
Yeah.
There has been a lot of debate on various internet forums about that. There's no definitive answer, but yes, I do agree with you. I would say that better safe than sorry. If you're renting on points, the Amex premium car rental protection is probably the way to go, just to protect yourself, because you don't want to be on the hook for a $50,000 vehicle.
Yeah, makes sense. And we have Michael from Travelzork. He just wants to be clear that a prepaid car rental rate does not guarantee a car, and I believe we discussed early that it does not.
100%. It does not
benefit.
Car. Correct.
None
whatsoever. Let's put it this way: if there are 3 cars left and there are 4 people on the line, and the person in front of you has a pay later rate, and you're at the back of the line and you've got a prepaid rate, they're not going to say to the person in front of you, sorry, we have no cars, because we think the guy behind you might have a prepaid rate, so we're going to hold it for him. That's not the way it works. They're going to service whoever is standing in front of them at the time, and you're going to be told, okay, yes, we'll get you a car, but you might have to wait an hour for someone to return something.
What is the policy? Yeah, what is the policy with the car rental company if you have prepaid and there's no car?
The policy is that they are supposed to find you a car at an alternate agency. There's no published contract, and you could technically take them to small claims court. You could basically take, Hertz promised me a car at this price. I had to rent from Avis at 3 times the price, and you're going to basically pay me the difference, and you'll probably win that case. Good car rental locations will basically walk you, meaning they'll take you over to some other company and they'll cover the difference. It doesn't happen often, and you often have to twist their arm, but it's of little use when everyone's sold out of cars at that point. They're basically just going to tell you, sorry, we've got nothing. And, they may say, okay, come back tomorrow. We'll try to get you a car tomorrow. It really depends on what the situation is, how out of cars they actually are.
And so with that line of thinking, since the question was specifically about the prepaid versus postpaid, I'm familiar with the hotel walk situation. If you're on a postpaid car rental rate, do they walk you the same way? Or would they just tell you you're out of luck?
They'll probably tell you you're out of luck, but you'll probably have to say, no, you're going to walk me. You're the one who's going to probably need to put the pressure on them to say, no, you need to do something for me. And if, they may push back, they may just simply throw up their hands and say, well, sorry, I can do for you. And that's at the point where you contact customer service after the fact and you say, I had a confirmed reservation. I showed up, you had no cars. And then they should issue you, credits, whether it's, $250 in credit, whatever it is, in order to make you whole there. You need to push, and that's your right to do, but it may take a little bit of prodding.
Okay, so it sounds like just like everything else in travel, when you're not getting what you're supposed to get, you need to push back.
Right, absolutely.
So yeah, that's super helpful.
Call, email, harangue them on Twitter. A public flogging on Twitter is always a good way to handle things. We're big fans of Twitter. Rental companies do not like airing their dirty laundry. None of the travel companies like airing their dirty laundry on Twitter. The louder you complain, the more likely you are to get service. Be the squeaky wheel. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, and then in terms of basically in terms of trying to manage the price of a rental now, we talked about the coupon codes and all of that, and using AutoSlash obviously to find you the best deal. But are you noticing less discounts generally? Like, is even AutoSlash pulling out less discounts because the car rental companies are pulling back because they're so busy, or is that not even the case?
I am noticing that there are less coupon codes out there that they're issuing. Avis Budget typically had save $10 off $100 rental, save $15 off $150 or whatever. They've kind of neutered some of those discounts. Enterprise hasn't issued a publicly available discount code in quite a while. I think you get 5% off for being an Enterprise Plus member. So the coupons themselves are crappy. Interestingly, Hertz has been really aggressive in this. Hertz has a great deal right now where you can get a fixed rate price of like $249 a week for an intermediate car at an off-airport location. We just had that in our newsletter this week, which is great because you may be finding that rates are like $600-700, and boom, you just apply this discount code and you're getting a fixed rate. So it's a great hedge against that. They had a $50 off weekly coupon as well last week, which is surprising because I don't know why they would be discounting in this market when they have so much demand. But that's Hertz. That's why they're in bankruptcy, probably. I don't know how else to do it, but it's like.
Do you think it's fine to rent from Hertz? Do you see any issue with renting from Hertz?
I think it's absolutely fine to rent from Hertz. Look, at the end of the day, we all want to save money. Do I think it's fine to rent from Fox? Do I think it's fine to rent from Advantage? Look, it depends on what your pain tolerance is. There's people that come to us and say, I had to wait online at Fox for an hour. Why do you guys represent this company? Well, we represent this company because there are people out there who basically want the lowest price possible. And for some of these folks, renting from Fox may mean the difference between being able to rent or not rent at all just because they can't afford it. So we really want to be upfront with our customers. We've got a star rating system that says, hey, this is what we assess this company at. National is like 5 stars. Hertz is like 4.5. Avis is right 4.5 as well. Fox, I think, is like a 3-star company. But there are plenty of people who have a great experience with Fox. And if the rate is $300 at Fox and the rate is $900 everywhere else, I'm going to consider renting at Fox. That's just the way it is. I would prefer not to, but it depends on what your pain level is.
I keep thinking about the last time I rented from Fox at LAX, and the line was just the longest. I mean, it was like an hour and a half.
Though, they actually now they have a skip the line thing. They call it like a status level, but you have to pay for it. You basically pay them $15 extra, and then you skip the line. I mean, is that not a scam or what? But hey, I mean, if going back to my previous example, if Fox is literally a third of the price of somebody else, and you're like, fuck it, I'll just book Fox, and but I have to skip the line because I can't deal with it. Hey, I might pay $15 myself. So
Hey, I guess that's just like doing the Southwest, get the A boarding group or the early boarding for $15 or whatever it is. But yeah, Fox definitely has always felt to me sort of like the spirit of car rentals. So we're wrapping up in about. Yeah, I'm sure we'll be wrapping up in about 10 minutes. So if you have any questions, please drop it in the comments now. And we've got one from Patrick that I'm going to get to in just a minute. But I want to ask a very specific one, because anyone that knows me knows that I really like drilling into how I can optimize literally everything. And one thing that I noticed in my Hawaii rental was this was a 5-day rental, and I was starting it on a Sunday. And if I started it at 5 o'clock, which was when I actually needed it, the rate was like $170 a day. And if I just changed the rental to be 2 hours earlier at 3 p.m. pickup, it dropped down to $48 or something a day. So by talking to Jonathan and Chris, I found out that your rate is guaranteed for the day. And so I booked it for 3 o'clock, showed up at 5 o'clock. Interestingly, the rate actually did reprice itself, and it jumped up by hundreds and hundreds of dollars, which I didn't notice at the time. But after getting in the car and looking at the contract, I saw it, and I went back, thankfully, before driving off the lot, and they did fix it. They said, you're right. You had it rented at that rate. Exactly. So if you could just explain the parameters, because none of us are trying to do anything that like breaks the rule, but like, is it the same day?
Yeah.
I mean, is it just the same day it's guaranteed, or what is the deal?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I can't explain how you can adjust the time by an hour and the price drops by 65% or whatever. I mean, it's like a black box. I've been doing this for 11 years. I still don't understand how the heck the rental car companies price stuff. I mean, literally, you can rent. I've seen situations where the price will drop in half if you rent for 1 day longer. So what I recommend, before I answer your actual question, is what I recommend is you mess around with the dates and times, because especially if you're being like, okay, these prices just look abnormally high to me. Play around with it. Pick up earlier, pick up later, add a day, subtract a day, whatever. there's lots of stuff that you can do if you're willing to be persistent with it. And even a half an hour difference can make a big difference. I'll tell you something I noticed in LA specifically. Rental car companies, they play games with each other. And what they do is they're repricing each other all the time. They have rate optimization departments in these large rental car companies, and they're basically price shopping each other on these online travel agencies all day long. And if they see that Hertz has dropped the price to $38 a day, then Enterprise will drop to $37.50 a day. And then Hertz will see they drop to $37.50, they'll drop to $37.25. And then all of a sudden, they run out of cars and the price jumps up to $60 a day. So they're constantly like gaming each other. But one of the ways that they try to game each other is that they price it differently on the half an hour. So a lot of people will say, okay, I pick up at 10 a.m. and I return at 10 a.m. We'll try 10:30 a.m. instead, or 10:15 or something like that, because it can make a difference. And we noticed that Hertz and at LAX, they were specifically pricing things differently on the half hour than they were on the full hour. So that was one way they were trying to kind of get a leg up on their competitors. And if you knew that, then you would always book a car for the half hour increment instead of the hour increment. Whether they still do that, I don't know. I haven't looked lately.
That's crazy. I'm definitely going to try that out now. Does AutoSlash try to adjust for that? Or is that
it doesn't? It's something that we've talked about, and we probably will at some point, but it just, it's kind of a little bit of cumbersome process to do that. And then how do you communicate that to the customer when you've adjusted their time? So
right, for sure.
Yeah, but basically, if you have a confirmed rate, you should be able to pick up anytime within 6 hours of that, especially with the major companies. People email us all the time and they're like, my flight changed by 43 minutes and I now need to pick up at 11:45 instead of 11. I'm like, no, you don't. I'm like, your rate is already the best you're going to get. If I rebook this for you, it's going to go up by $100. You just leave it the way it is. You can pick up within 6 hours your original time. But it is important to remember that rentals are priced on a 24-hour day, which means that basically if let's say you reserve for a 10 a.m. pickup and a 3 p.m. return, you actually have until 10 a.m. the following day to return the car in most cases. You can use that full day and not be charged an additional day. And likewise, if you're picking up later or picking up earlier, you can do that as well. But you have to remember that if you have a 5-day total rental, or 5 days is probably a bad example. I'll tell you why in a minute. But if you have a 3-day total rental and now you're picking up 3 hours earlier and now all of a sudden it becomes a 4-day rental, you're going to pay more. That's just the way it is. And people are like, well, but this is the price I reserved for. Yes, but you picked it up 3 hours earlier and now you're basically into another day. So you're going to pay for another day. But then there's also the issue of, where is the break between a daily rental and a weekly rental? So a weekly rental is anything more than 5 days. It sounds a little strange, but the rental car company doesn't consider a week to be 7 days. They consider a week to be 5 days. And if you want to be pedantic, a week is actually 4 days and 3 hours, because as we discussed earlier, after the third hour, you're basically paying for the full day. So essentially, you've got the situation where 4 days and 3 hours is actually considered a weekly rental. So if you're keeping the car for 4 days and 3 hours or more, you might as well just keep it for 7 days if that suits you, if you're running locally and don't have to get on a flight, because it's probably going to be the same between that, except for some taxes that are, assessed per day. So
right. But if you book
wanted to know, but that's the story.
No, it's super valuable. So the important thing to know is if you book a 4 hour or a 4 day, 3 hour plus rental and you return it after only 4 days on the dot, you are probably going to get actually charged more because you didn't have a week rental.
Or you may get charged less. It's sort of one of those, you don't know. There's a box of chocolates. You never know how the rental car company is going to price, that. It depends on the situation. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to add just something that I learned just practically on the fly, and I can't remember which company it was, and it was a few years ago. It might have been Sixt, but I wouldn't swear to that, which was that I was several hours late picking up the reservation, and I assumed that I would have 24 full hours from the time I took it out. And they printed a contract for me, and it said something like, 7 p.m. pickup, return 2 p.m. the next day. And I was like, wait, shouldn't that be 24 hours now? And they're like, oh yeah, I can give you 24 hours.
Right.
I was like, well, what if I didn't catch this and I showed up at 6:45 tomorrow? oh, we would have charged you for overage because you only booked it till 2. So I think it's just worth saying, like, always check the
Maybe
contract to
not.
make sure.
It depends
They
on
might
how
not have.
this computer system would have handled it. Yeah, it's hard to say, but I think that in years
This is
past,
weird.
you would have automatically gotten it, but the rental car companies, they find ways of nickel and diming you. Now that some of them say that if you return more than 6 hours from your originally scheduled time, then they'll charge you a late fee of $25. I mean, they've started instituting that, so it's hard to know for certain.
Yeah, go ahead, finish.
No, I was going to say at AutoSlash, we'll basically tell customers, like, we'll never give you a 100% guarantee. Like, what happens if? Well, typically this is what happens, but we won't guarantee it. The rates are guaranteed for the exact time that you pick up and return the car. This is what we think will happen, but each company handles things differently. So it's hard to give you a hard and fast rule.
Fair enough. But if you needed an extra day, if you booked for 4 and now you need 5, do you need to call?
Typically, you don't need to call. The rental car companies in some cases will charge you a late fee. It's not a lot. It's $25. Typically, they'll charge you the rate that you're currently paying. So people get nervous that, like, oh, the rental car company, like, I have this like $35 a day rate and they're going to charge me like $175 for the last day. No, if you have a $35 rate, they're probably going to charge you another $35. They usually charge it at the prevailing rate you already have. Because you're sort of locked into that rate plan, but things can get a little squirrely when you're kind of at the border between, a daily rental and a weekly rental. It can get a little weird at that point. So it probably pays to call and have them adjust it. In many cases, you can just do it in the app these days. They all have mobile apps and you can just extend the rental time right from the app, which is really convenient. So.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. We actually in Hawaii did wind up needing an extra day, and I did call. I guess I was concerned because I knew that they were completely sold out, and I was afraid that they needed that car and they were going to dig me somehow up the wazoo. But yes, they just said it'll be the same rate, and
right.
So it sounds like either way that would have worked. But I might have had a late fee if I didn't call or use the app. So
just to go back, I mean, in case this wasn't apparent, I mean, the rental car company is not saying, well, Dave Grossman showing up at this time and we've got, this class of car allocated to him. No, it's a very fluid situation. There are people who are picking up early, returning late all the time. They're doing one-way rentals. Cars are coming and going. The rental car company has algorithms that they use to price these things out and to know what sort of utilization they need. And in most cases, those algorithms work well. They're based on historical trends, and they know that what percentage of customers are likely to show up. And they know if there's bad weather and a bunch of flights are going to be canceled, they know that they need to adjust those things. Does it work all the time? Just like, airlines overbook and sometimes they screw up. They're not always perfect, but by and large, they have the added extra capacity in order to handle that. So it's not like an each car type of thing where if Dave doesn't return on time, somebody else is going to get screwed. It doesn't work like that.
Okay, that's really good to know. Answer one quick comment just to clarify. If you book up at 8 a.m. and you drop off at 6 p.m., so if you're talking the same day, that's just one day. But if you mean pick up at 8 a.m. and drop off 6 p.m. the next day, that's two days.
Correct.
Okay, so if there's no other major comments, I'll let us indulge Patrick's question here for a few minutes before we wrap up, which is he's curious if the car rental environment that's going on right now has created opportunity for more competition from services like Turo, or if not, what is the effect on those, or what are your thoughts generally on the services like Turo?
Definitely. I mean, I think that companies like Turo and Get Around are benefiting from this to a certain degree, but they're also limited to a certain degree because they don't have enough vehicles in their fleets to really make a significant difference. I'm sure that Turo and Get Around would like to recruit more car owners. It's a common misperception that all the cars that are on Turo and Get Around are private people renting out their cars, just like on Airbnb. It's all private people renting out rooms in their houses. There's a lot of professional renters. There's a lot of rent-a-car companies out there. Like, you'll just drive near LAX and you see like, Joe's Rent-A-Car. Joe's Rent-A-Car is probably renting a bunch of his cars on Turo or Get Around or one of those type services and stuff. But yeah, I mean, they're certainly ones to check. I think that, in some cases they can be less expensive. Prices have spiked there as well. I mean, even Uber and Lyft are options, but the problem is that Uber and Lyft are also suffering from a lack of drivers these days. I was just reading something before this call that was saying that Uber has told their investors that they're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to try to recruit more drivers because they just don't have enough drivers on the road right now. And some of that has a trickle-down effect from the car rental shortage, because when you fly into Las Vegas McCarran, when you couldn't get a rental car because they're simply sold out, all those people are now trying to go trying to get Uber and Lyft rides. And that's why the lines are 1 to 2 hours long for Uber and Lyft. So,
Right.
there's no free ride. It's, somebody has to pay the piper somewhere, and the effects do trickle down into other areas.
Are there any downsides to using? Because it's basically you're renting somebody's personal car.
Sure.
And to me, I've actually never done it. And I think one of the reasons I've never done it is I'm wondering what happens if I get in an accident? What if there is someone keys the car? So can you talk for a second about that?
Well, Turo loves to sell insurance to both the renter and the owner of the car. That's like one of their main profits there, which is a bit of a scam in my opinion. But I mean, look, it can be a great deal. You can get some nice specialized cars there. There are people with Teslas on there and stuff, but they're the exception rather than the rule. You can also get some guy with the 1987 Camry with, the rusted out floorboards and stuff like that. We've heard some horror stories there. Turo is not known for their service. We've heard of situations where both renter and owner have run into issues and accidents and things like that, and Turo kind of left them in a lurch. There's also the issue of having to meet up with the owner and get the card, and what if the owner's not there on time and they're not reliable and things like that. But you can have a great experience. It's like anything. It's like, I mean, I'm sure many people have used Airbnb. I've used Airbnb. I've had great experience with Airbnb. I've had really crappy experiences with Airbnb, some real horror stories. Would I not rent from Airbnb ever again? No, I probably would still use them. It depends on the situation. But by and large, when I'm tired after a trip and I show up somewhere, I'd rather check into a hotel, because I know that, the hotel's open 24 hours and I walk to the check-in desk and they have the room I wanted, and the room's going to be clean and it's going to be exactly as I expect. That's just my preference. Other folks may feel differently. If you want to rent something unique or prices are too high with traditional rentals, give it a shot. It's worth searching. You got nothing to lose.
Will your credit card cover a Turo, the credit card CDW?
I don't think it does, and I think Turo's using that to their advantage in that they're basically selling, like I said, both sides of the insurance. They're playing both sides of the fence, which is a bit unethical.
Right. So it's important to know that our traditional credit card that works for the car rental company is not going to be applicable for a Turo or something like that. Correct.
So you have to factor that in as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. So our time's up. I would love to thank you again for joining me to talk car rentals. For anybody that needs a car rental, you have to use AutoSlash. It just makes it so much easier. They do all the work for you. It's free. You get the best possible price. Yes, you might use it and not get, thousands of dollars off what you were trying to book in the first place. But even if you don't save much, you got the best deal, but you might save a lot. So it's definitely worth using.
And hey, if you end up
getting
a deal at another site, track it with us. You never know, we might find you a better deal. So even if you end up booking elsewhere, plug it into our tracking tool. You got, it's free, and we might save you some additional money.
Just put the confirmation number in there, right? That's all you got to do, right? So that's fantastic. I just want to also give a quick shout out to Michael Traeger from TravelZork. Reason being that he helped me figure out how to use StreamYard. So if you are at all into casino loyalty programs, check out travelzork.com. And of course, I'm Dave Grossman at MilesTalk. And if you are not already in the MilesTalk Facebook group, you need to join. We talk about stuff like this all day long. And obviously check out the blog at milestalk.com. So Jonathan, thank you again. And I'll see you soon.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care. Good night.